Dr. Quraishi, do you believe that state funding is the only way? I look at the numbers both in the context of electoral bonds as well as now contributions through cash. One party gets over 80% of the funding. It doesn't make it a level playing field.
Yes, indeed. That's what Dr. Chokar and I have been saying for a long time. Of course, Dr. Chokar prefers to call it public funding rather than state funding, and I agree with him. But I would say it's not a state funding of elections, but a state funding of political parties. Post-election, on the basis of their performance, on the basis of every vote they get, if we give them 100 rupees, that will work out to about 5,000, 6,000 crore rupees after every election, which will be good enough for them to do their politics with. But correspondingly, there will be a total ban on corporate funding, which is actually the biggest problem today, because there is no free lunch. If the corporates give you a donation, they want free licenses, they want contracts, and they even want bank loans with which they run away regularly. So therefore, I think public funding of political parties based on performance, 100 rupees per vote, is a very good formula, and it needs to be considered seriously.
But the fact is that that's an ideal world, Professor Chokar. The real world is that corporates across the world fund political parties. When the electoral bond scheme came, many hailed it because many said it's perhaps better than the scheme that existed before, where political parties simply got all their money in cash that was unaccounted for. So, I mean, are we really in any position to say that state public funding will actually eliminate all the other issues, whether it's corporate funding or whether it's cash donations?
Before we think of public funding or state funding, as people like to call it, although as Dr. Quraishi said, I call it public funding. Before we can even think of it, we must know how much money has actually been spent on the election by political parties and the candidates. That figure today is not known. Unless that figure is known, how do you plan how much money is needed? Dr. Quraishi has a very good formula, and I have no qualms with it. But I must say that before that formula is even thought about, the actual amount spent on elections should be known. Number two, there has to be, Dr. Quraishi said there has to be a complete ban on corporate funding. I would say there has to be a complete ban on any other kind of funding. Because if political parties are given public money elections,
but how will it happen?
Just a minute.
No, Dr. Chokar.
It will not. That is my point, Rajeev. It will not happen, and therefore, public funding or even public funding of political parties through the formula that Dr. Quraishi says is not practical at all, unless political parties are made to ensure absolutely clear terms that they declare how much money that they receive from every single source and how they spend that money. Unless there is complete transparency of political parties, nothing will work. And let me add, in 2013, the Central Information Commission said that 6 national political parties are public authorities under the RTI Act. All the 6 parties have blatantly defied this order of the highest statutory authority in the country for the implementation of the RTI Act. And the case is lying in the Supreme Court since 2015. Now, unless we can make political parties transparent in their financial affairs, nothing will work. And electoral bonds, of course, are an icing on the cake, which have removed even a semblance of transparency that was there in the political process.